My name is Megan Walker. I'm 35 years old. Until that Sunday morning, I honestly believed my younger sister had already hurt me in every possible way. I couldn't have been more wrong. At exactly 7:03 a.m., my doorbell rang once, not twice. Not repeatedly. Just one quick press, almost like whoever stood outside already knew they weren't planning to wait. I lived alone in a quiet neighborhood just outside Seattle. Sunday mornings were usually peaceful. I slept in, made coffee, and spent a few lazy hours reading before the week started again. So when the bell rang, I almost ignored it. Then, about 20 seconds later, it rang once more. Short, calm, deliberate. Something about that second ring made my stomach tighten. I slipped into my robe and walked toward the front door. The moment I opened it, I froze. 2 suitcases stood neatly beside my welcome mat. Next to them was a folded stroller, and sitting on my front porch was a little girl with tangled blonde hair, holding a sleeping toddler tightly against her chest. She looked up at me with exhausted blue eyes. "Aunt Megan?" My heart stopped. "Olivia?" She nodded. The little boy sleeping in her lap was Noah, my sister Claire's children. Olivia had just turned 5. Noah wasn't even 3 yet. I hadn't seen them in almost a year. Claire always had an excuse. She was busy. The kids were sick. They were visiting friends. Then she simply stopped answering my calls altogether. Eventually, I convinced myself she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. And now, her children were sitting alone on my porch. At 7 o'clock in the morning, without their mother. I knelt beside Olivia. "Sweetheart, where's Mommy?" She looked down at Noah before answering. "She said you're taking care of us now." I felt every ounce of blood drain from my face. "What do you mean now?" Olivia reached into the pocket of her little jacket and carefully pulled out a white envelope. "Mommy said only you could read it." My hands were already shaking before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. Only 3 sentences. "Don't look for me. The kids will have a better life with you. I'll come back when everything works out." That was it. No signature, no phone number, no explanation, no date, nothing. I read it again. Then a third time. Some part of my brain refused to accept that this was real. This had to be some terrible misunderstanding. Some emergency. Some kind of joke. Anything. But the 2 frightened children sitting on my porch made one thing painfully clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Claire had planned this. I carried Noah inside first. He barely woke up. He didn't cry. Didn't ask for his mother. Didn't even look confused. He simply rubbed his eyes, climbed onto my couch, and curled into a ball. That scared me more than anything else. Children his age cry for their parents. They panic. They scream. Noah acted like waking up in a stranger's house was perfectly normal. That wasn't normal, not even close. I made pancakes. Olivia thanked me 3 separate times before taking a single bite. Then I noticed something strange. She wasn't eating everything. She quietly wrapped half of her pancake inside a napkin. When she thought I wasn't looking, she slipped it into her jacket pocket. "Olivia?" She immediately froze. "I'm sorry." "Why are you hiding your food?" Her little shoulders tensed. "For later." "There'll be plenty later." She looked at me with a tiny smile that didn't belong on a 5-year-old's face. "You never know." I couldn't breathe for a second. No child should ever think like that. I grabbed my phone and called Claire. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. I sent 3 text messages. No reply. Then I opened our family group chat. Claire had left it sometime during the night. Her social media profiles were gone. Even her email account had been deactivated. She hadn't disappeared by accident. She had erased herself. 30 minutes later, our mother arrived. She hugged Olivia tightly. Noah barely reacted. Mom walked into the kitchen while I poured milk into 2 cups. Olivia watched the refrigerator with wide eyes. Finally, she asked, "You always have milk?" Mom smiled gently. "Of course." Olivia let out the smallest sigh of relief. "Good." Mom looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us needed to say what we were both thinking. Something had been terribly wrong inside Claire's home for a very long time. While the children colored quietly at the kitchen table, I unpacked the suitcases. Clothes, winter coats, favorite toys, medical records, birth certificates, vaccination cards, insurance papers, school records. Everything. Not the things someone packed for a weekend. Everything a parent would pack. If they never planned on coming back, then something unexpected happened. A phone began vibrating inside one of the suitcases. It wasn't mine. It was an older smartphone with a cracked screen. The caller ID displayed one name. Daniel Brooks. I answered. Silence. 5 long seconds. Then a man's voice. This isn't Claire. No. Another pause. Then you must be Megan. My grip tightened around the phone. How do you know my name? He sighed. Because Claire always said there were only 2 places she'd ever leave the kids. I felt my heartbeat quicken. What are you talking about? My name is Daniel. I lived with your sister for almost 2 years. I frowned. Claire had told everyone she hadn't dated anyone seriously since Noah was born. I've never heard of you. A bitter laugh escaped him. That's because lying became easier for Claire than telling the truth. I stayed silent. Then Daniel said something that made every hair on the back of my neck stand up. Listen carefully. If the children are with you, do not tell Claire you found that phone. I looked down at the cracked device in my hand. Why? His voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because she didn't leave it there by accident. She wanted you to find it, but she forgot what was still inside. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? Another long silence. Then came the sentence that changed everything. That phone doesn't just explain why your sister disappeared. It proves she'd been planning to abandon those children for months. Daniel didn't say anything for several seconds. I could hear traffic in the background. A car door slammed. Then he finally spoke again. Megan, before I tell you anything, I need you to answer one question. What? Are the kids safe? I looked across my kitchen. Olivia was helping Noah color a picture. He was smiling for the first time since I'd found him. They're safe. Daniel exhaled. Good, because Claire isn't coming back anytime soon. My stomach twisted. How do you know that? Because she's already in Los Angeles. What? I watched her leave yesterday afternoon. I stared out the kitchen window, trying to process what he had just said. She told everyone she was visiting an old friend. Daniel laughed bitterly. That's what she wanted people to believe. So why is she really there? To start a new life. Those 4 words hit me harder than I expected. A new life. Without the children. I couldn't speak. Daniel continued. Claire was accepted into a private entertainment management program almost 6 months ago. She became obsessed with it. She kept saying this was her chance to become somebody. But there was one problem. The children. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What does that have to do with leaving them? Everything. He paused again. Every interview she attended. Every application she submitted. Every producer she met. She told them she wasn't a mother. A cold chill spread through my body. No. Yes. She said she was completely single, no family, no children, no responsibilities. I closed my eyes. Suddenly, every strange excuse, every canceled birthday, every missed holiday, every unanswered call, started making sense. Daniel continued. At first, I thought she was only hiding them professionally. But then, his voice cracked slightly. I found something. What? A notebook. What kind of notebook? One where she'd written every step of her exit plan. I felt my pulse racing. What do you mean? She made lists, furniture to sell, subscriptions to cancel, accounts to close, people to block, documents to pack. And one page simply said, he stopped. What did it say? Children. My fingers tightened around the phone. There were only 2 names underneath. State custody. Or Megan. I couldn't breathe. Daniel continued quietly. Your name had a check mark beside it. I slowly looked toward Olivia. She was laughing because Noah had colored outside the lines. Claire hadn't left them with me because she trusted me. She left them with me because I was convenient. Because she believed I would never turn them away. Because she knew I loved those children too much to say no. I suddenly realized something. Daniel. Yes? Why are you telling me this? His answer came immediately. Because I tried to stop her. My heart skipped. What happened? I called Child Protective Services. My eyes widened. You did? Twice. What happened? They investigated. And? Claire cleaned the apartment. Borrowed groceries from neighbors. Bought new toys. Practiced answers with Olivia. I frowned. What do you mean? I heard it myself. Daniel's voice became quieter. She would ask Olivia questions. What do we tell people? Mommy always feeds us. Mommy always comes home. Mommy loves us. And Olivia repeated every sentence exactly. My chest hurt. She was 5 years old, Daniel sighed. She'd already learned how to protect her mother. I looked at the little girl sitting in my kitchen. She wasn't drawing anymore. She was carefully breaking one crayon into 2 equal pieces so Noah could have the same color. Children who grow up feeling safe don't think like that. Children who grow up feeling secure don't divide crayons perfectly because they're afraid someone else will go without. Daniel interrupted my thoughts. Megan, there's something else. My stomach sank. What now? Check the side pocket of Noah's suitcase. Why? Just trust me. I walked toward the luggage. There was a hidden zipper I'd completely missed. Inside was a thick envelope. $300 bills. 5 gift cards. A passport. And a flash drive. What is this? Daniel answered immediately. That's her backup plan. I pulled out the flash drive. What's on it? I don't know everything. But I know enough. I once saw her connecting it to her laptop. What was she doing? Editing videos. What videos? He hesitated. The children. My heartbeat accelerated again. What kind of videos? Videos she'd been posting online. I frowned. Claire barely used social media. Daniel gave another bitter laugh. Not under her real name. What? She had another account. A very successful one. I felt completely lost. What account? She pretended to be a struggling single mother. I stared at the wall. People donated money. Baby clothes. Furniture. Food. Thousands of dollars. And nobody knew. They thought every story was real. I whispered, oh my God. Daniel wasn't finished. Sometimes the stories were real, but not for the reasons people believed. What do you mean? If Noah got sick, she filmed herself crying. If Olivia needed shoes, she recorded a video. If they had an empty refrigerator, she made sure everyone saw it. And then people donated. How much? I don't know exactly, but I once saw over $12,000 arrive in less than a week. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What happened to the money? Studio equipment, professional photos, cosmetic procedures, travel. I slowly sat down. Nothing made sense anymore. Then Daniel said something even worse. One night, I overheard Claire talking to another influencer. What did she say? She laughed and said the smartest decision she'd ever made was having children. I felt sick. Why would she say that? Because... Daniel stopped. His voice sounded full of disappointment. Kids are expensive. But they make incredible content. Silence filled the room. Then Daniel whispered the sentence that stayed with me for years afterward. She didn't see them as her children anymore. She saw them as her brand. At that exact moment, Olivia walked into the kitchen. She looked up at me. Aunt Megan? I quickly wiped my eyes. Yes, sweetheart? She held up a family drawing. There were only 3 people in it. Her, Noah, Me. I smiled gently. What about Mommy? Olivia looked at the picture for a long moment, then she quietly picked up the pink crayon and erased the woman she had started drawing. Without looking at me, she whispered, Mommy doesn't stay. Those 4 words shattered what little hope I still had left. And deep inside, I realized this story was far darker than a mother simply abandoning her children. Someone had been preparing these little ones for her disappearance. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Olivia's quiet voice. Mommy doesn't stay. No 5-year-old should say those words with that kind of certainty. Children are supposed to believe their parents always come back. Olivia didn't. She already knew better. The next morning, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There were dozens of folders. Videos. Contracts. Bank statements. Emails. Spreadsheets. At first, I thought Daniel had exaggerated. Then I opened the first folder. It was labeled simply, Content. Inside were hundreds of short video clips. Claire crying in the kitchen. Claire hugging Noah. Claire pretending to search an empty pantry. Claire sitting on the floor, surrounded by unpaid bills. Except, between every emotional scene, there were moments she had forgotten to delete. The camera would keep recording after she thought she'd stopped filming. She would suddenly smile. Check her makeup. Read comments. Laugh. Then start another emotional scene. One clip made my blood run cold. She handed Olivia a small stuffed rabbit. Cry while holding this. Olivia looked confused. But I'm not sad. Claire smiled patiently. I know, sweetheart. But pretend. I'll buy you ice cream afterward. The little girl tried. Her tiny face twisted as she forced herself to cry. Claire stopped recording. No. Real tears. Think about when your hamster died. Olivia immediately burst into genuine tears. Claire looked directly into the camera. Perfect. I slammed the laptop shut. I couldn't watch another second. Daniel had been right. She hadn't just lied. She had used her own children as props. For years. That afternoon, someone knocked on my door. 2 women stood outside. One introduced herself. I'm Sarah. The other smiled politely. We're with Child Protective Services. For one terrifying second, I thought they had come to take the children. Instead, Sarah said, We've been looking for Claire Walker since yesterday. I invited them inside. For nearly 3 hours, they reviewed every document. Every video. Every bank statement. Every email. One investigator quietly whispered, I've never seen anything like this. The evidence was overwhelming. Claire had collected more than $420,000 in online donations over 4 years. Most donors believed they were paying for food, medicine, rent, school supplies. Instead, the money paid for luxury hotels, designer handbags, cosmetic surgery, professional photography, business coaching, international flights. There was almost nothing spent on the children. 3 days later, Claire finally called, not to ask about Olivia, not to ask about Noah, not even to ask if they were safe. Her first sentence was, You went through my things. I stared at my phone. That's what you're worried about? My laptop. My accounts. My hard drives. Megan, those belong to me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Your children belong to you. They're asking for you every day. Silence. Then she sighed. I knew you'd make this emotional. I felt something inside me break forever. They're your children. They're scared. They think you disappeared. Claire answered calmly. They'll adjust. I almost dropped the phone. You actually planned this. I planned my future. You abandoned them. I gave them a better life. You left them on my porch. I left them with the only person I knew wouldn't say no. She sounded proud. Almost relieved. As far as I'm concerned, they won the lottery. I ended the call. Immediately. Federal investigators became involved within a week. The online fraud alone was enormous. Then came child neglect, identity fraud, tax violations, forgery, False charity solicitations. The case grew larger every day. Television stations began covering the story. Former donors came forward. One elderly couple had emptied part of their retirement savings because they believed Noah needed emergency surgery. He had never needed surgery. A widow donated almost $30,000 after watching one of Claire's videos. She later admitted, "I thought I was saving those children." Instead, she had paid for Claire's vacation in Italy. 4 months later, Claire was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport. She had been preparing to leave the country using a work visa she'd obtained under false financial records. The trial lasted almost 3 weeks. I testified. Daniel testified. Former donors testified. Digital forensic experts testified. The prosecutors played several of the raw video files for the jury. The courtroom became completely silent. You could hear people crying, especially when they watched Olivia trying to force herself to cry on command. Claire never looked at her children once during the trial. Not once. She spent most of the proceedings taking notes with her attorney. When the verdict was read, she didn't react. The judge looked directly at her before announcing the sentence. These children deserved a mother. They were treated as business assets. They deserved love. They were given a marketing strategy. Claire Walker was sentenced to multiple years in federal prison for fraud, identity-related offenses, and crimes connected to the exploitation and neglect of her children. She simply nodded, as if she had expected it all along. Nearly a year later, family court granted me permanent custody of Olivia and Noah. The day we signed the final papers, Olivia asked a question that almost made me cry. "Does this mean I don't have to pack my suitcase anymore?" I looked at her. "What suitcase?" She smiled. "I always kept one ready, in case Mommy wanted to leave again." I couldn't speak. Instead, I pulled both children into the biggest hug I could. "No, you never have to keep a suitcase ready again. This is your home, for as long as you want it to be." Noah wrapped his tiny arms around my neck. Olivia whispered, "I knew you'd come." Today, Olivia is 11. Noah is 8. The hidden food has disappeared. The nightmares have become rare. Their laughter fills this house every single day. Sometimes people tell me I saved 2 children. I always answered the same way. No, they saved me, because the morning I opened my front door, expecting another ordinary Sunday, I had no idea that the greatest responsibility and the greatest gift of my life was waiting on the porch.